Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Ghost Biker Garage. I am your host, the Ghost Biker, and as you can see, I am not in the garage tonight, but I am in the historical and haunted historic Scott County Jail. So it's actually been quite a loud night tonight. I was just on a podcast a little bit earlier, and we had the doors in the front slamming. Sounded like somebody was coming through the front door. So hopefully they'll either be kind of quiet while we're going through the show here, or if they're gonna do something, maybe if you hear something, just kind of post it here in the comments and let me know. But I hope everyone is having a great week. It has been super busy here. We're wrapping up April with the flashlight tours and with the ghost hunts. We actually have one more guided ghost hunt tomorrow night. That is our last ghost hunt of the season. We've sold 2 tickets. We've got 4 tickets left, and then that will be sold out. And then a flashlight tour tomorrow night, as well as paranormal investigators over the weekend. So super excited about that. I want to say hello to a few people over here in the chat room. Hello to my business partner, Dr. Sumner, and my friend Janet Alm. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If anyone has any questions tonight for any of any of the for the guest, myself, or anything about the jail, please feel free to put it over here into the comments. And if you don't mind, please put it in all caps, just so I can make sure that I don't miss it whenever I'm scrolling through the comments there. So again, thank you all so much. Please feel free to like, share. We love getting the word out about what we're doing, and really, really appreciate that. So again, just a few different things going on. This past weekend, I was up in Virginia. I had Russ and Carl on as guests last week, and I actually got to meet them in person at the beautiful St. Albans Sanatorium. I was up there on Friday and Saturday nights speaking at EnigmaCons. And if you've not gone to one of their conventions, I highly recommend it. Those folks, Bedford Paranormal and Marcel with St. Albans Sanatorium, they know how to put on a convention. So if you've not been, I think they've been doing it for about 5 years now. Definitely look into going next year, because they do it right, and they make the speakers feel special as well as the guests. So excuse me. So please check them out. Posted photos. I wasn't able to do a live stream investigation. I did that last year. Hope to do it this year, but I wasn't able to do it. It was just a very, very busy whirlwind weekend, so wasn't able to do that, but was able to go in, take some photos, and really just had an amazing time there listening to some of the great speakers. So we've had that going on. Like I said, we've had a bunch of investigations here going on. Coming up, we're about to release the schedule for May and June here at the jail. That'll be posted by the end of the weekend. We should have all of that up, as well as some of the different events. I know some folks have been asking about our schedule here at the jail. We actually have the schedule open we have it open through the end of August. And so we kind of held off on that just a little bit, because both Dr. Sumner and I had speaking events that's coming up in October and September. We want to make sure to get all of that on the schedule before we opened up the main schedule for investigations. Those, I'm proud to say, will be opened up by the end of the weekend as well. We'll have our schedule open through December. So if you're looking to investigate, definitely want to get on there. And you also want to get onto our research project that we're hosting here at the jail. If you haven't heard me talk about it, we are hosting a paranormal research study. So we've got more information about that on the historic Scott County Jail Facebook page and website. That research study goes through May 31st. If you book an investigation here at the jail, then you get access to this research study that we're doing. Just kind of briefly, we have an item that was given to us by a detective. Neither myself nor Dr. Sumner knows what that item is. And so it's in a container, and we've got it sitting here at the jail. The only thing we know about it is that it was involved with a crime. It was involved with the jail, and the crime was a murder. And so that's all we know, but we're looking to see if the jail will tell us who it was, what the murder was, what the crime was, what the item inside of the container is. Those are the sort of things that the investigators here are trying to find out. They take the information that they get, write it on a piece of paper. They put it in this lockbox that's over here behind me, and we will be sitting down with the detective on May 31st. We also offer hour-long sessions. So if you want to maybe do this remotely, or if you want to come in, if you're not a member of a team and you can't make it down, for an investigation within that time, you can book a 1-hour session with the item to participate in our research study. So we have more information about that on the website, www.historicscottkogel.com. So that's just a few of the events that we've got going on. We'll talk about some of the others that's coming up, the Harold Young Memorial Scholarship, as well as a Ghost Biker haunted ride that's coming up at the end of May. We'll talk a little bit about all that at the end of the show. But I want to go ahead and introduce tonight's guest, because I know we've got some really cool things to talk about. I know he was just recently at an investigation this past weekend that he's going to share some stories with us about. But my guest tonight, he has been curious about the paranormal since the age of 10 after having an experience at Gettysburg. The experience has not left him since. He left for college and was drafted into the Army. He was in the Army from 71 to 72, Vietnam and Thailand. He retired from the U.S. Postal Service, and he is a member of Shadow Hunters Paranormal Investigations and Events, as well as a member of the Psychics Unite organization. He's been a student of ITC for 3+ years, and that's essentially the path that he's been following. He is also a USCG licensed master captain and a muskie fisherman. So I know we definitely have some interesting things to talk about with my guest tonight. So if you will, help me welcome Mr. Greg Kos. Hey, Greg.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Real good. Real good. That's for
Good.
sure. It's good. It's good. I'm very, very glad to be on your show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come on
Oh,
here
sure.
and chat with us. I know you're a very busy person, and it really is truly an honor to sit down with you. I know we met a year or two back when I was a guest on your show, and we've had some really cool conversations since. So why don't you go ahead and start off by telling us about how you got interested in the paranormal and about that experience that you had back when you were 10?
Okay, Miranda. I was with my family, and we went out to Gettysburg because I had an uncle that was at Fort Lee, Virginia, and my father was the kind of guy that when you went to a big place like that, the first place he could pull over, he'd pull over, and that would be the extent of your experience. So whatever you could get there. So consequently, or as it turned out, we started experiencing things right away with the wind coming in and going out. And we started to hear cannon rounds. We started to hear, rifle shots, people screaming. We heard it all. Horses, it was insane. We even had rounds that were going over all over the top of our heads.
Wow.
And it uh it was like that for we were there for probably maybe over 6 7 hours.
Wow.
And back then in that day there weren't any reenactments going on, so all the people that were around, and we were there all by ourselves. So I'm going to go ahead a little bit.
Mhm.
We got done and we were walking across the parking lot, and we ran into a ranger, and my father started talking to him, and I went up just to listen to what he was going to say. And he says that, there was a bunch of crazy stuff going on. You have to have something big going on across the valley there. And the park ranger said, there's nothing going on over there. He says,
Wow.
well, how do you explain any of this? He says, he looked at my father and he went ahead and he says, this happens every day. And and then we turned around. He said goodbye and went to get back in the car. And he sort of grabbed me by the neck and he just sort of went ahead and said, now, this is going no farther than this. So, back in that day, you had to pay attention to that. And it just, the people that I even know in Gettysburg, like Mark Nesbitt, he's an amazing man and he's been through it all. He's seen it all. There's tons of people that have been around that have heard these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
I think it sort of established a calling for me in that respect, like you mentioned. And, it was something that is still with me to this day. I can go back. Now, the big part about that was I did not remember where it was. But when we went back, and the first time I went back, and I belonged to Ghost Research Society too, with Dale Kaczmarek. So we went back, and that was my number one item, was to try to figure out where the heck I was. And we would go to place to place to place. But you probably know that in the last so many years, they've been trying to get the location to look exactly the same way it did during the battle.
Yeah.
So they were cutting things down and moving things around and, that kind of thing. So when I got back, it took me 2 days. And on the third day, we were getting ready to leave. And one of the guys went ahead and says, let's go back to the start. And we went back to that first place. And as soon as we pulled in, it hit me. Because that's the way my dad was. And then as soon as I started looking at the trees, because it was Reynolds Woods.
Okay.
So Brigadier General Reynolds, who was the biggest guy in the whole entire army at that particular time, was killed there. And that's where we were.
Wow.
So once I established that, I just said that I don't know. I got to have somebody behind me calling my name, but.
Greg, I'm going to my mom's. The paramedics just called me.
Okay, bye. Sorry. I apologize for that, Miranda.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
She's going over to check on her mother. The paramedics just went there, so.
Oh. Well, I mean, if you have to go at any point in time.
No, I'm fine. That was where it really summed it up. It means a lot to me because of the park itself and the deaths that occurred there, and the fact that today, especially in our communities, no matter where we're all from, we're still all brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what side you fought on, this was all what put this country together, basically. All their blood.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be remembered. And the people that fought there
Absolutely.
have to be remembered. And they can't be forgotten. And when I say that in earnest, because I feel there's a lot of things that have been happening here that shouldn't have happened. And it was totally wrong. Because those guys fought just as hard as everybody else did.
Yeah.
And soldiers are soldiers. They're not politicians.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the difference with that. And I just wanted to bring that up because it means so much to me. And I have a place there that's called a triangular field.
Okay.
And that's where my ITC started.
Oh, okay.
Because what had happened was I was halfway down the triangular field, and triangular field is at the base of the Devil's Nest, is up above, and then beyond that is Little Round Top. So that when you get down, when you start going down, everybody else was doing a EVP session on top with Dale, And I just took my gear and I started going down because I wanted to take a bunch of still IR shots into the woods. And I was right on the edge of the woods. I was out probably maybe at the most 12 feet. And I was on a slab of granite that probably ran maybe 25 or 30 feet. And there were boulders on the edges of it. I went down there as I was going down there. Rosemary Eileen Golly was with me, went beyond me, and her husband went down to the creek, was way down in the bottom.
Okay.
And they said that's where the blood flowed.
Wow.
All the way from up above. And I was a good 100, I would say a good 100 to 150 yards from the top.
Okay.
And I could hear them plain as day.
Wow.
And they were doing this session on the spirit box, and it was and the word would come out, and somebody would say, it said head. And then somebody else said, no, it didn't say head, it said dead. And they just kept on going back and forth. And I was going, stop it. Just stop it. This isn't right. Because if there's any spirits there that want to go ahead and communicate with anybody, they're certainly not going to go ahead and hang around if somebody's going to bicker and moan. Point blank. And you're not treating them with any respect to begin with. But as I was down there and this was going on, I started taking these shots, and all of a sudden I've got the sense they were there. And then they started to come out from the trees. And I could feel them. And this is before I did anything with my mediumship. Okay. And I just held my arms out. And it was like we were brothers. Wow. And I says, I served, and I fought, and you guys fought, and I love you. And if there's anything I could do to help you, I will. And I left it at that. And it was like, I couldn't ask for anything better. I really couldn't. And, the way things are in today's world, that's the kind of thing that helps people through real trying times. It's the camaraderie. It's the guys that, that made it, that can tell the stories.
Yeah. Because,
all the other ones, they can't. And, and without going into further ado on that, that's all part of why that's such an important place to me. And all the little idiosyncrasies about the park and the statues. Yeah. And the stories about the horses. We talked about that when you were on my show.
We did, yeah.
About how they, there was a method to the sculpture's madness. So each ranking officer that was on a horse in Gettysburg, depending on which the front hoofs were doing, would show whether that man, if both of the hoofs were down, I want to say he lived. If one hoof was up, he was wounded. And if both front hoofs were up, he was killed. Wow. Or I could have that backwards with the way how I think. But either way, if you look it up, or the people look it up, you can get an idea what I'm talking about. And that the most impressive one that I saw in the whole entire park was Longstreet, General Longstreet, Confederate, one of the biggest guys, one of the biggest guys on the field, the biggest beard. He was the biggest man, and he was on a horse that was like the size of a Clydesdale, as far as the size of the hoofs were concerned. And I always get mesmerized by things like horse hooves and how big the guy's head is, or how big his body is, And this horse was standing there, and he got wounded, and the one hoof was up. And I was looking at the size of the hoof and the shoe that was on it, and I was going, holy crap. And I rode horses when I was growing up. I never seen a horse off that big.
Wow.
But it had to be, that horse had to be that big because of the guy that was riding on it. You know, he was a huge man. And it was just one of those other little things that took me and carried me. And no matter what happens in the circles of the paranormal, this is mine. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It's we all have our stories, and we all have the things that have happened to us, and that is one of the most important ones to me.
Absolutely. And first off, thank you for your service. It's
Thank you.
that's something I know for me and my family that is extremely important coming from a family of military men. So that's important. But what an amazing thing to be able to draw on of a connection to have with these spirits in such a special location. You nailed it when you said that really does create such a camaraderie and such a brotherhood that you're able to go in to this location. The last time that I was at Gettysburg, I was actually there on Veterans Day, and it was actually, I mean, you could just really feel the energy shift just from being there on that particular day. And so I can only imagine, the experiences you had being able to draw on that.
There were a few other places, but I mean, the majority of it was there. Up on Little Round Top, where the Pennsylvania Regiment held off all those guys. There was a lot of energy up there. I couldn't understand it at the time, but I can remember it happening, and it was the same thing. But there's a heck of a lot more battlefields around, besides Gettysburg, but that's the gem.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the war,
Yeah.
so
So did your dad believe before he went, and did he believe after that experience? I
my
know it was a
father
different time.
my father was a survivor from World War II. So my father never said anything about what he did in the Navy and how his ship was sunk
Mhm.
until I was like I came home.
Mhm.
So I was like 21 or something like that when I came home. And that was pretty much one of the first times that he even mentioned it. And after that, he started putting things up, and he had pictures of his destroyer and it going, basically getting blown up and going down and all this crazy stuff. So it was a little bit, it was the only thing that really joined us. It was one of those relationships. It was one of the ones that didn't have a lot of hugs and love,
Mhm.
but that was atypical of the years that was going that at that
Sure.
time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and a lot of folks that fought in that war, they didn't really talk about it very much. My grandfather, he told me now, of course, I was real young when he would tell me this, but I remember sitting down with a map and him pointing out, where he was because he was in Hawaii whenever they were bombed. And then he talked about the Aleutian Islands and, the different places that he was at. And again, it's one of those situations where I wish I was older and could really ask some more questions, because I know that was one of the things even my grandma said he never really talked a whole lot about it.
yeah, and then when he got older, he went to the reunions, and then they started getting slimmer and slimmer in numbers,
Wow.
and I think he was the ninth one left,
Wow.
and that was off a destroyer that started out with 236, and the day they were sunk, they lost over 130 on one hit. It
Wow.
blew the whole front of the ship off, and it was stuck on a reef. So it was destroyed. This is Okinawa,
Mhm.
and they were stuck there, and it got nasty. And these guys it was part of the SOP on what happens when you would get stuck is there would be another destroyer that would be that destroyer would have tug duty. So he would have to come in and pull you off. But in order to before he would come in to get you, what you had to do is you had to unload the magazine and the forward magazine for the bridge. So I went on and unloaded all this ammunition onto the deck. And it was one artillery shell came in off the island and took 120 guys in the front of the ship and just vaporized.
Wow.
So he never told me that. He told me stories about him and his friends.
Yeah.
When this was all going on, but he never told me that part. And I had to read it all because it's all in that destroyer action. And he was a hell of a guy.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
He believed in Our Lady of Guadalupe. That's what carried him through, he said. So that's the only religious thing that he ever said. He was a devout Catholic. My
Gotcha.
mother was too. I was raised that way, but I think about 14, it was when it was already going away.
Yeah.
I had too many questions, so it's crazy.
Wow. And so you're a member of Psychics United organization. So did that come later once you got more into the paranormal and investigating, or was that something that's always been with you and then the paranormal research came after that?
I was already in the paranormal, and I was approached by a gentleman who was a psychic medium who is my mentor now. His name is Scotty Rourke, and he's from Madison, Wisconsin. And he's an amazing man. And he told me things that nobody ever knew, and said that, you have some gifts. And, if you'd like to go ahead and work on these gifts, which I think you should. And I joined him, and I just went ahead, and I'm on the ride. My spiritual awakenings already happened. I've had a mini awakening with the ITC end of it for communicating, I want to hear spirits besides what my head tells me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I want to hear it. And I've heard two of my guides already. And it's the wildest thing. So that's the part that carries me. All these parts that I'm mentioning are things that have made me want to continue and continue to help people in whichever way I can. And part of it was Psychics Unite, because there were people that were coming in there. They were just like me when I left Gettysburg. They couldn't talk to anybody about their gifts or about things that they were hearing in their head or they were feeling amongst different people. And they didn't know which way to go. They thought they were nuts. They were, all sorts of things came into play until they started they would come to conventions like Paracons and start talking. Chicago, the last Chicago Paracon was in 16, and we had a booth there. And that booth, I talked to two girls, and I just mentioned the fact that Scotty was next to me in the table. He had a table next to us, and they said that they were interested in having him do a reading. And I said, well, he's not here now. He'll be back a little later. and it was like, oh, they turned out to both work at the hotel we were at.
Okay.
So they were limited on time. And at the end, I said to him, I says, hey, they've been waiting for, probably 5 hours. And he says, good. He says, I'll take them. And he did both of them, and they came out and they were crying.
Wow.
So, and I'm not saying that's good or bad.
Right. Right.
I'm just saying that there was definitely a reaction. I just try to tell people the way it is. I don't like to sugarcoat anything. I believe that we all have a purpose, and I'm still trying to figure some of mine out. But that's part of the trip.
So do you primarily hear, see what have you been able to
I'm
develop?
almost on what's called an intuitive medium,
Okay.
psychic medium, and in conversations when I have with people, I already have an answer for them
Okay.
before the question is even a quarter out, most of the
Okay.
time. And I that way, and I'm still not at the point where I would be doing readings.
Mhm.
I don't think that's my purpose.
Sure.
The reading end of it. I think it's more on the communications
Mhm.
and carrying that into the investigations
Mhm.
in that direction, because there's a lot of people out there that don't show the proper respect with their machines,
Mhm.
and they don't respect the spirits. That's wrong. To me, it's wrong. Okay, so it's my ball game when it's my show, and vice versa. And when you talk about those kinds of things, you would like to see everybody follow it. Or if when you do a presentation, you got somebody behind you there.
Well, it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny because I keep getting I felt like I saw something out of the corner of my eye just a second ago, and I keep seeing comments here in the thing of someone keeps walking past the doorway. So that's kind of wild.
I think it's that other doorway. There's
The
another one.
one over here. So this one over here goes to our visitation room. So normally we have that door open, but we had a guy in here earlier that we recorded for a podcast, and so we were taking his picture, booking him in over there. So yeah, you guys just let me know if it's the black door. Everything's backwards on this. The black door over here in the visitation, or if it is the doorway over here, which is the one that goes out into our downstairs cell blocks and that sort of thing. But it's kind of weird because people keep seeing things, and I keep seeing something. So, anyways,
I when you as soon as before you even started the show, I was just looking and I thought, wow, this I could feel that there's more to hear than just Miranda.
yeah, there
You know,
there probably is. That would not surprise me because it's been a very active day today. We were doing some filming here today, and just before our guest came in, there was doors slamming, and then just before I was on a podcast a little bit just before this, and we were hearing stuff. I literally thought someone was coming through the front door over there, and then of course, just as I was getting prepared for you, I kept hearing a banging. So yeah, guys, if you see anything, please keep letting me know because it has been quite an active evening. So anyways, please go on as you were saying.
I don't know where we were at.
So you
No.
were talking about using your gift in with the
Oh,
investigations.
okay. And a lot of the times, a lot of the people always want to go ahead and share equipment
Mm-hmm.
and Chicago, 2016. I was going to do a presentation on the Estes method,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just getting my stuff ready outside of the big room, and a gentleman came out of pretty much nowhere and just came up to me and started talking about, hey, that's your SB7, and I said, yeah, and we started talking. And I told him who I was, and he introduced himself, and he said his name was Jeff Resman. And he's one of the older, more established ITC guys. If you took a round table of ITC people,
Mm-hmm.
he would be one of them. He
Well, and
gave me.
I was just going to say, let's step back just in case, because ITC, I think, is just absolutely fascinating. So for anyone over that's watching that maybe doesn't know what ITC is, if you could explain that.
Well, anything that's used is called instrumental transcommunication, and it's any device, whether it would be, you could use a pendulum, you could use lights, you could use a spirit box. What else do I have here?
So I know some people use water.
Water. Well, that's scrying almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that kind of thing, to go ahead and communicate with the spirits. And you could ask them questions and they can give you answers if they're there. And the part that we were talking about earlier about not only being polite, or going in, it's you want to talk to them, they don't want to talk to you. Okay, they may, after they know you for a while, they may come out like that, but in the beginning, and it took me for a while to understand when I was going to have a good session, and just the feeling of the room, how I was approaching the situation, different locations with my mediumship. And it helped out considerably. I was one of the ones in the very beginning with one of the groups that would go into an investigation and not have a medium with them at all, a psychic medium. And it's like, why would you go into a location that you've never been into without having somebody that could be your eyes?
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want to shock them any more than they want to shock you. It in order to be pleasant about this and say we're going to be try to be on the same level, and we don't want to upset anybody, that this is, to me, that was my approach.
Mm-hmm.
So I said right then and there, it was like, well, I need to do something about this. No matter what it is, I have to start looking into it. And the ITC end of it, once again, when you talk about it and you talk about the different applications or things you can do, we get into different methods. Like there's, as far as a spirit box is concerned, we do this Estes method.
Mm-hmm.
And the Estes method is a method in which you use sight deprivation,
Mm-hmm.
and you have the headphones on, so all you hear is the spirit box and your headphones, so you don't hear any of the questions of who you have in the room. I enjoy a controlled environment too,
Mm-hmm.
where there's not a lot of people, because I don't think they're as comfortable with answering questions. And if you have a whole bunch of people, they may not even come out of the corner if they don't want.
We experience that a lot here at the jail. When we have larger groups, we always try to keep them small. But when we have large groups, we always tell people, if you're not getting anything, try splitting up into groups of 2. Because a lot of the time, if you've got a group that's extremely serious and you've got 6 or 8 people sitting in one of the cell areas, a lot of the time it's almost like they kind of want to retreat just because
Right.
it's, we do see that a whole lot here.
It pertains to any place, I think.
Hmm.
It's not just one location. It all goes back to that. And to me, my box is my box. It's like that
Yeah.
old. This is my rifle. There are many like it, but this one is mine.
Hmm.
And you keep it in that sense. And I have shared a few of my boxes. It forced me to go ahead and get a couple more,
Hmm.
just so that if I do go to a location and people would like to experience an Estes method,
Hmm.
that I could give them another box that's really not one of mine, like
Yeah.
how it was explained that your spirit box is like your telephone. It's
Hmm.
your own number. Jeff Resman was point on that, and he showed me the light in the beginning on that because I was way off the mark.
Mm.
There was so much that needed to be said, not only for that part of the communication, but also your preparation. So your meditation,
Hmm.
how you go ahead and you take yourself and you produce yourself as being the conduit,
Hmm.
and your intention has to be set too. So your intention is going ahead tonight. I'm going to be talking to spirit even before your session starts.
Hmm.
I start all my sessions off usually, if I don't forget, with a prayer, with the same prayer to Saint Michael.
Hmm.
And then when I end it, I say my own little prayer. And if I get out of the situation and I do happen to come home and something doesn't feel right, I do have a place for them to go after I tell them they only have two options. One, they have to leave immediately, or two, they have to stay in this particular location and they're never going to leave,
Hmm.
period. And it's sort of bizarre in the nature of it, but I was given that. I think I talked to you about that when you were on my show.
You did. You did.
And
Hmm.
it's a devil's nest, and it's like that stick tower that
Hmm.
comes up. It's like a teepee, and it has different things on it, and that's the only really, I would say, considered to be dark. I
Hmm.
don't. If there was one in there, he is gone now. Uh,
Wow.
I try to keep this place well cleaned because I have grandkids,
Hmm.
and we don't want anything like that to be around. They've also always had pleasant experiences here,
Hmm.
and Grandma doesn't even like my owls.
Well, and we've got some great comments over here in the chat room that I just want to address. Ronnie Anderson says that Ron Yacovetti, and I hope I pronounced that right, is
Yes,
very good and very knowledgeable on all ITC research methods. He's actually one. I had a residential case that reached out to me with some different EVPs, and Ron was actually one that I reached out to consult with on those EVPs, and he is such a good resource when it comes to ITC research. So I definitely agree with you, Ronnie. And Ken says I've used ITC communication, SB7, pendulum,
thousand
dowsing
rods.
rods. Dowsing rods are my personal favorite on all of my investigations, and I've collected many great conversation results for about 8+ years. Do you use the SB7 or SB11, Greg?
I use a 7. I have two more boxes that are all Stafford nanocoms from
Hmm.
Katie Stafford. I have those, and then I have a bigger a mini ink box from them too. Austin
Okay.
Menard, Maynard, and
Hmm.
KD are two of my favorite people, and
Hmm.
so is his wife Katie.
Okay.
And they're like, to me, they're like family. So I
Absolutely.
I love the fact that they put so much into what they do, and they're great people. And the gentleman that went ahead and mentioned Yak Yak I can't pronounce his name.
Yacovetti.
Yacovetti. He is one of the gentlemen that was in the original round table that, and Austin Maynard was on there. There's, I had a couple names written down and I can't see them now. Bruce Holliday wasn't there. KD wasn't there. But most of these guys are all ITC, and they all have their own little, they're all box makers, you know, and they have gone ahead. The Hulties, excuse me, is another one. Him and his wife, Kathy, I think her name is. And they're another two people that are going to be on my show that have really influenced me in the sense of understanding that there's all sorts of different ways or directions you can go in with boxes too.
And I would love to have a more in-depth conversation about that because, you know, I feel as though it's one of those things. It can be a controversial topic, but I think it's one that is often a misunderstood topic because, you know, that's one of the most important things is knowing how to use your tools. And so just having people who, you know, have sat and studied these tools, that I feel that, you know, that's a great conversation to have. And that's why I wanted to bring up Linda Morrison's point that I don't share any of my divination equipment or my electronic investigation equipment. I feel that they are magical tools that I have connected with.
100%.
And yeah, very, very well said. And it's kind of interesting because the podcast that I was on just before this, it was a group roundtable, and we were talking about how one of the teams that was on there mentioned, you know, through some of their research, they had found, you know, people, you know, have their tools that they are more comfortable with, and maybe the reason that they get certain responses is because they've really connected with that tool. And I really think that's the case. And the key word in her statement there is connected with. You know, I'm not a I would like to be. I love my dowsing rods, but I'm not that good at the pendulum. I don't get as much of a response with that as I do with the dowsing rods.
I know a lot of times people will say there's no reason why you can't share a box. And I don't necessarily agree with that. What happened this last weekend happened only in a limited case with 3 different people who I knew. It's not like I didn't know who they were that were sitting down to do an Estes. And 2 of them ended up using the Nanocom, which is one of my extra boxes. It's a great box, and I have a connection with every one of them, but I had to apologize when I got home with it because of the fact that, you know, is exactly what they said, that you can't, there's certain things, you know, you get put on the spot a lot on some of these investigations where, you know, it's say, for instance, we did this benefit for Plotographs, and it was at Ashmore Estates. And it was a great event, and I was willing to share everything like I normally do for people to have a nice experience. And it happened that it went down that way. And I felt bad at the end because I felt like I was being a hypocrite to the extent was that I was sharing my box. But as they got ready to do it, I was already forewarning Spirit that this is what was happening, and to give them the honor of going ahead and being able to make contact with them, communicate. And this isn't going to happen all the time. I sort of had to assure them that, because, you know, we all going to run into something like that. And I'm not the kind of person in the paranormal that can say no.
Yeah.
You know, there are certain people that, you know, if you put them on the spot like that, it's going to be cut and dried. I can't do that because the chances are I may turn a new person off.
Mhm.
Someone with gifts that really wanted to understand what was going on with a certain type of experiment, and I wasn't giving them that chance. So if I present that to my boxes afterwards, and sometimes I have to talk to them for quite some time,
Mhm.
and it's not like talking to the wall, because they know me, and that's what I share with them. And it's not like I just mentioned it. I don't do it all the time.
Do you go and after you do you do some type of cleansing of your?
Yes, I say a prayer.
Mhm.
I've never smudged them.
Mhm.
It hasn't come to that point where, when you hold the box, you can get a good feel. If the box is right.
Mhm.
And I believe, and since it's my box, if I believe, it should be fine.
Mhm.
It hasn't let me down yet, and that's really important. I've seen a lot of interesting names, people that I've seen around quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
And
A very good group. We always have a good group every Thursday night, and
do you have? Does it? It doesn't show comments over on my end, does it?
um, I'm not sure. I mean,
If I go up and hit comments, will it show them?
yeah, it should show if you
Holy
go to
cow!
comments. Yeah.
Holy
So
cow!
so yeah, we always have great group of people, a lot of regulars, regular faces here that just great questions, great comments. And so again, if anyone has any questions for Greg about ITC, about his experiences, please feel free to put those in the comments. We're getting close to the wrap up of the show here, but we always have such amazing people that come on and are very interactive. And we really, really appreciate that very, very much. So you were just at Ashmore Estates. Was that the benefit that you did, or
Yes,
was that
yes,
something different?
that was the benefit, and it was
Okay.
for Tim Miley, and he has a charity. It's called Potographs,
Okay.
and he lost a dog quite a while ago, and it really took a lot out of him. And he thought, how could he make it up to his animal? And it was like he had a picture of himself and the dog, and he would make copies of it and sign them. And we started this big thing, and all the money goes to charity.
Wow.
It goes to shelters, and he's got a heart of gold. I'd follow him anywhere. You know, he's one of those guys, and that's all that counts. But there's Chris is on here.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
here.
We've got a lot of different folks on here. So did you have any interesting or unique experiences this past weekend?
We had there's an area in the basement that's called like the workshop room off the boiler, and it's a dark place. And there was a spirit that was in the corner, and Scotty was about three to my left, and I came in there a little late, so I didn't have a chair, so
Hmm.
I went towards the corner, so I was about 3 feet from the corner, and when I went to stand there, I went, "Oh man, you shouldn't be standing here." I was just picking it up, and I'm going, "Oh no, 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 this is just held out my hand a little bit, and it was okay, and then all of a sudden, and it was cold there, and the temperature, I mean cold, it was, I don't know, maybe 55 degrees. It dropped like 20 degrees, like right now, and it moved right in front of me and went right in front of Tim and went right down to where Scotty was sitting.
Wow.
And it was like, wow, yeah, it was a shadow figure, but how it came out, and and the coldness to it, it wasn't that good.
Wow.
It had a real bad feeling about it. So that happened on the Estes method.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing a lot of doubles, and I've been doing a lot of filming
Mm-hmm.
for recording them. So I didn't have to have somebody sitting there writing things down. We do have a show on Wednesdays that's called Metaphysical Crossing that we just started up 5 weeks ago, and it's all on Estes. So if anybody wants to
wow.
catch any of that, and if you want any questions or things pertaining to the Estes,
Mm-hmm.
we will go over them, because there's a lot of myths now that are mentioned, that people have different ways of looking at things, and the history of it too.
Gotcha.
So I'm hearing other things compared to where I thought it really started in Estes Park at the Stanley.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a book supposedly that was written like 4 years before that pretty much gave a detailed description of that kind of communication. And all the time, it always involved the three-way. So it also had a recording device
Mm-hmm.
attached to it too, so that what was coming out of the spirit box was going through the recorder.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, so it would go to you, so you would pick up everything.
So am I mistaken when, because, and I know that there are some people that do run the spirit boxes through, the recording through the splitter. Am I mistaken in thinking that, so because you're going into that sensory deprived state of, removing your vision, removing your hearing, um, you know, isn't sometimes some things you get maybe not coming from the spirit box, but also coming from that sensory deprived state, and the white noise helping that. So doesn't that often happen as well, especially if someone is really in tuned? And because I know sometimes for me, I love the Estes method, but sometimes for me, I'm not sure as to whether the voice I've heard, if it's something that I'm picking up on or something that's come through the box. So doesn't that sensory deprivation kind of aid in that as well, or am I mistaken in thinking that?
My point that I'd make right now is yes, it does. And what happened to us was, I started after about a year, I started unknowingly channeling.
Okay.
And the words, I had no idea the words were coming out,
Mm-hmm.
but they were coming out, and they pertained to people
Mm-hmm.
in the room and situations and things that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing that happened was, we got into a situation where it was like, am I going to hurt somebody with this?
Gotcha.
I don't even know I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a lot of talking, and I had to do a lot of spiritual work on it, as far as, helping me along. And that's why I have to meditate
Mm-hmm.
before I do every session, because it's important to make sure I have my guys on the right side. When you said that, and we were at Edinburgh Manor in Iowa, and we were going through the session, and it's me and Mike Wright, who's a partner of mine that does a lot of Estes with me.
Mm-hmm.
And about 2 weeks before this, we picked up, above the white noise, we picked up a whole entirely different track that was going through, and it was ticking.
Mm.
It was almost like if you were going to go ahead and say Morse code,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't Morse code. It was ticking. So I presented the round table group of all these ITC guys
Mm-hmm.
that were there. And every time I talk to one of them, I bring this up again. And it was like, I was watching a program, one of those programs on our satellites that are going through space, going to Neptune and all those things. And every time you see one of those programs, they always talk about the noise that space makes.
Okay.
And it was that noise.
Wow.
And it was coming through above. So that session at Edinburgh, Michael freaked out. That was it. The headphones came off. We filmed the whole thing, and his eyes were really, really big. And it was like, it wasn't right. It was scary.
Sure.
So I presented it to him, and I says, "What do you think it is?" To this round table group. And I've been talking to guys even this last weekend. And I says, "What do you think it is?" That round table group, 3 of them looked at each other and they started to smile at each other. And they said, "Isn't that what Frank was all about?" Frank Sumption. Frank Sumption is the man that made basically the first spirit box. He made the Frank's box, and he made it out of Popular Mechanics or whatever the magazine was. They had a diagram in it, and he took that diagram and he went ahead and he built himself a box, and he started to talk to aliens.
Wow.
And then somebody in the paranormal community caught on to this. So Frank started giving his boxes away. And then that's a whole different story. But that's exactly where I am today about all of this, because there's more than just spirit.
Sure.
Okay. If you want to say angels, and you want to say spirits, and you want to say ghosts, and you want to say aliens, I believe they're all one and the same. And they're all transdimensional.
Well, and just that example that you just gave of that capture, that's kind of hard to dispute.
Well, to a lot of people, they would have just ignored it. But, after a while, you sort of really pick up on, how you would pick it up too. If you had another area up there.
Yeah.
And it was plain as day. It was
Wow.
an entirely different track. Like you were picking up 3 tracks of on a real recorder. 3 different.
Well, and
what am I trying to say?
yeah, almost like whenever you split the tracks off.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
3 different recordings is what I was trying to say.
Ronnie says, I had the ticking in locations a few seconds before I got credible EVPs. I always wondered what the ticking was. And it's funny he mentions that, because I used to notice, and I'm talking about not using any type of ITC aid, just straight EVPs out of the air. I've noticed that there's been times that I'll get a clicking sound just before, and I don't know if that's or like a pop, almost like either it's coming through, kind of, not, I don't want to say coming through the veil, but like it's coming through something. It sounds close, but yet still far away. But there's a popping or a ticking sound before I've gotten some really good EVPs. And it almost sounds like they're kind of yelling out.
It's like, wait a minute, I've got to talk to Miranda.
Yeah. Exactly. There you go. And yeah, that's, I've noticed that on several. I've actually noticed that since the very beginning when I started doing investigations, is that when you really start to listen to some of them, it's almost, and again, they sound like they may be right over your shoulder, but yet far away, kind of like they're yelling, if they're not, whispering. But I've noticed that popping sound before.
I do a little thing with my guides in my room when I call them in to talk. And if I'm having issues with not picking up voices where they're muffled a little bit, I'll have my guides sort of bring them to the front of the room to sort of help out in that respect. Because, a lot of them, there's some that they don't want them to talk at all. And they just sort of keep them in the corner. They won't let them come out.
Mhm.
And I know it's just not how I'm thinking. It's
Mhm.
what's actually really happening.
Sure.
Because you always have your big bullies and you have your ones. And the one little guy, he's just trying to say, hey, I want to go to the light. It's like, no, I don't think so today, buddy. You know what I mean?
Exactly, and I wanna make sure that, I get to a couple of these questions. We got a few of these that have coming in. I wanna get to those before we end the show. Carl says, "Hi, Greg." He says, "So you're saying spirit boxes can attract an attachment, or did I hear that wrong?" I think what he's referring to, kinda jumping back in the conversation, is sharing, equipment.
I would go that far to say that is possible if you do not know the people that are working with you. If somebody came out of the blue and just asked to do that, I don't think I would let them do that. And once again, I do the prayers and I sort of bless my boxes at the end. And if I feel something that wrong about it, I most personally will definitely sage them without a doubt.
Good question, Carl.
Yes,
Um, and Vicky says, "What is the one place that you feel the most connected to?"
Old South Pittsburgh.
Hmm, I like that.
And and where I felt the most connected was the nursing station by the elevator, and it was the elevator that used to go, the bell used to go off in the elevator.
Mhm. Yep.
And if you go through that hallway, what I really felt really strong about more than that there was down in that boiler room,
Oh,
because
okay.
that's where I caught that picture of the nurse
Yes.
from the third floor. I showed
Mhm.
that to you, right?
You did, you did. 'Cause I've caught that bell from, yeah, from those elevators right there at the nurse's station, actually.
The only other place I would say that would even come close would be Post Town.
Oh, okay.
And that's because I've had the last time we were there was for non-com,
Mhm.
and we had little kids that grabbed our fingers. Like they grabbed these two fingers
Yeah.
on both of our hands, on my hands, and then Sharon, who's in the group, was with me, and we were walking down the hallway, and they just came up on the outside and grabbed our fingers, and we
Wow.
just walked down the hallway. So they were real little kids. They
Mhm.
couldn't have been any more than maybe 6. But I've always liked that location.
Yeah.
I had that's where I had the doll in the doll room, and I had an eddy meter in front of it, and the doll, they actually were trying to get the eddy meter out of the way to grab the doll,
Mhm.
so they were moving the eddy meter in
Oh,
front of it,
wow.
and I have it filmed. The whole entire thing, took for them to move that eddy meter on one of those plastic chairs and that rubber casing. It took them 37 minutes to move it 14 inches.
Wow. That's incredible movement, though. I mean,
I
even
even to catch it.
yeah.
I started going back and forth, and the doll's foot was sticking. You could barely see the doll's foot.
Mhm.
I have a business card that it's on the cup, and just the tip of the toe of the doll's foot was showing, and then the eddy. And as I advanced it after doing it about 10 or 12 times, I
Mhm.
noticed that all of a sudden it caught me, and it was like, wait a minute, almost the whole entire leg is showing.
Wow.
And then I went back, and I went from the start to the really the meat and potatoes, and
Mhm.
it was 37 minutes.
Wow. That's an incredible capture to, one,
It
to
was
m move.
plastic chairs.
Mhm.
So how did they move that? They didn't move the dowel. The box actually moved in front of the dowel, because the dowel was sitting, on the one side of the chair. and it was the prettiest doll in the room.
Wow.
I went for the prettiest doll with the blondest hair. Not that I don't love brunettes, but that's what I was trying to, in all my captures. Another thing that comes up on a lot of my pictures that I get, normally if I go to a location and I shoot 150 pictures, if I have a capture and say, for instance, I know I took that picture in the first third of what I shot, it will be at the end of the roll. It will. I have no idea how they do that, but it's like almost like, well, if he goes 3/4 of the way through, he won't even look.
Right. At least you got that. At least it didn't like stop your film or stop, your camera action.
Like they can do.
They can.
St. Albans was like that on me twice, and I was on that staircase. I was filming the staircase, and it would have been awesome because all the motion detectors went off and everything. So whoever it was, either went up or came down.
Wow.
And I turned it on, everything was on, and the camera never ran. I think it ran 2 seconds when they shut it off. So I turned around, and I probably wasn't down that first set of stairs when they turned it off.
Wow. We had somebody here at the jail just last weekend that was filming, and new person to YouTube, came in, filmed about 3 hours, and all of their film was wiped when they left. It was really weird. They got home. They've actually booked another investigation to come out, and they were like, every bit of what we were filming was wiped. Just.
I guess they give you whatever they need to keep you excited.
I guess so.
It keeps your curiosity up to the point where you don't want to let go. But I wouldn't want it any other way.
That's right. I love that. And to me, a lot of the time, the personal experiences are the ones that I don't think we would have if we did capture it on film. I think that sometimes those are just supposed to be just that, personal experiences. As frustrating as it can be, because you want to show them, you want to put that out there and be like, look, we can show that you're real, you're here. But I would take a personal experience over a documented experience any day, just because those have been some of the most special that I've experienced myself.
Especially if they come up and just take their hand and put it right on top of your head.
Yep.
I had that one time. I came right out of I was sitting on the edge of a bed, and it was me and there was a girl in the group, and both of us came off the bed about 1.5 feet, straight up in the air. She let out a scream. I wasn't going to scream, but I mean, it was like, holy crap.
It's startling.
Ice cold.
Yep. Let's see. We've got one more question here. Nancy says, can you tell a newer spirit from an older? I'm talking about their passing. And I think maybe I understand what you're saying, Nancy. Are you talking about when you say newer spirit or older, I guess just from how long it's been since they've passed, I believe. Are you able to tell?
It's 50-50 for me. I don't think I'm really at that point yet with that part. Talking, communicating with spirit right now is most important. Visually, what I see probably 50-50. I don't see all the time.
Gotcha. So it's not something you're able to do just anytime.
I know people that do it.
Yeah.
Definitely do it. But, I don't know if I'll ever be there. But, whatever you want me to do, that's fine by me. Whatever I'm intended to do, or, and they definitely show me my path. So that second awakening with the round table
Mm-hmm.
and all that just gave me total faith on the path I was doing as far as communication was concerned in the ITC. So
Well, that's wonderful. Vicky says, how about being able to tell the difference
yeah,
between one spirit versus five?
I can't feel the energy. There's a lot difference. They didn't tell me whether I was correct or not.
And so, but again, thank you everyone for your great questions tonight. And um, like we talked about, Greg, I can sit and talk about ITC and that sort of thing. I'm fascinated by your stories and just your experiences that you've had. What's what's next for you? Anything big going on that you're working on, or any events or anything that you've got coming up?
I haven't heard what Dale Kazmarek is coming up with for big investigations yet.
Mhm.
There's a gentleman that's in the group that's from Great Britain that's visiting us. So Dale's going to be taking around a lot of
Mhm.
Chicago locations and that. I don't know even though if I'm going to be able to do that part because I got grandson baseball and then many investigations. We're going to do another metaphysical show, I believe, and we had the opportunity to this last one to meet Patty Negri
Oh, nice.
and Natalie Jones
Mhm.
from Paraflix because
Mhm.
we're Dan Norval's in the room.
I
Danny
like
Bottos
Dan.
too. Dan's
Yes.
in here, and Dan took us and GRS out to the Black Hawk War sites. And I had no idea that back in the day that Abraham Lincoln was one of the militia in the Black Hawk Wars. So
Wow.
they have a statue of him out there, and he had a big floppy hat. He was holding it, and they gave him the detail of burying all the militia that were slaughtered by Black Hawk. So
Wow.
it was a great day. Dan's a tremendous guy. He's got a great show on Paraflix. Uh, I know Nick Sarlo is our head,
Mhm.
and he does all the filming and everything for Shadowhunters.
Now
And
you are on Paraflix, correct?
yeah,
Okay.
the only thing that's on there right now, there's me talking about boxes.
Okay.
Uh, I am pursuing more of a little addition with my portal. A lot of people look at it as okay, it's just simply an enhancement machine.
Mhm.
But for a lot of people, you can pick up some extra parts, that you would miss on playing Spirit Box. To me, so that's why I'm trying to continue with it. Otherwise, I'm going to sell it.
Well, and what's the best way if folks want to watch that?
If they want to go and see any of that, they go to Shadowhunters Paranormal Investigations and Events page.
I
I don't
believe
have
I've
anything written.
Oh,
You've
no,
been
that's
on there.
fine. I have, yeah, and I believe I've got that, if it's your all's website, I've got that in the, show notes there.
And then I have two shows. The one on Wednesdays is Metaphysical Crossing, and that's basically all ITC, and it's between me and Nick Sarlo. And then on Fridays, I do a show called The Shadow Hour, and it's mostly people that I've met on investigations that I know through Paracons, things like that, and that I've had the opportunity to watch on different shows that caught my eye for certain things. And like Miranda right here is one of the ones that it's been on the top of my list for quite some time.
Well, thank you.
And I finally got her to get on, and now we're going to have to do another show.
Yes, we will. Yes, because it's been, I think, about a year. I think that,
Yeah, we'll do one in the fall.
Sounds
You will.
good. I think I was on there just before it was like the end of your season or you were going on break, I believe.
Yeah.
And yeah, had a blast. So
Yeah, it's it's wonderful. You do an awesome job. I really
thank you.
love the way you put things together and how you can remember things. And I'm at the stage now where I don't write it down. I'm gonna forget it.
I'm afraid of forgetting stuff, so I'm constantly writing things down. I'm always pleased when I remember without having to write it down, but I used to have such a almost an eidetic memory. But I'm finding as I'm getting older, that's fading a little bit more. So,
So
um,
everybody understands I am a grandpa. Okay. So don't call me any nasty names because I retaliate.
there you go.
It's
Well,
been wonderful.
it has been wonderful. Thank you, Greg. Like I said, just a wealth of knowledge and the people you surround yourself with, talking about, Scotty and Del Kismerick and you have some great folks that you surround yourself with that are doing great things in the paranormal community that I really enjoy following. So thank you for what you do. And thank you more importantly for coming on tonight. And thanks to
Oh,
everyone there in the chat room.
thanks everybody. It's been a blast. Miranda, love and hugs.
Absolutely. Love and hugs, Greg. And
Okay.
I'm going to hit just a couple things that we've got going on. So I will catch up with you here after the show. But
Okay.
thank you again.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Uh huh. And so again, thank you everyone so much for tuning in with us tonight. Your questions, your comments, we really appreciate that. Also, want to thank everyone. Yesterday was my birthday, and I got a ton of messages and calls and comments. I've been trying to catch up on all of them, and I can't tell you how much I truly appreciate that. So thank you all for taking the time to send those birthday wishes to me. A couple little things, like I said, I mentioned at the top of the hour that was coming up. But we've got the Harold Young Memorial Scholarship that's going to be happening on May 21st. And we're gearing up for that. That's the second annual Harold Young Memorial Scholarship Dart Run. And we're going to be starting it here at the historic Scott County Jail at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. This will be the first place where you play darts. And then there will be 2 other locations, and it will end at the Robbins F&AM Masonic Lodge, and that's where we will be announcing the winner. We will also be giving this scholarship to this year's scholarship recipient winner. We were giving $1,000 to a winner. I'm also getting ready to post, if you're not able to make the event, where you can send donations. I know I've had a lot of folks that have been asking about where they can send donations to the scholarship. All of the proceeds that are raised from this goes to create a scholarship for a student at Scott High School who is majoring in the field of science. My dad was a science teacher for 39 years. 30 of those years was at Scott County High School. So we are honored, absolutely honored, to be able to create this scholarship in his name. He was also a 50-year plus Mason. And so that's why it's so important to be able to partnership with the Widow's Sons Masonic RA, which is the Hillbilly chapter. So anyway, so thank you all that donated last year, came and participated in the event. We had an absolute blast, and it's going to be even more fun this year. So keep on the lookout for that. You don't have to be a biker, so you can also bring those cards, and it is $20 per person to play, and all those funds do go to the scholarship. So that's coming up on May 21st, and then we're going to be doing another Ghost Biker ride, a haunted motorcycle ride, which is going to take place the very next weekend. We're still working on the details of that. We want to make sure that we don't do that in conflict with any other events that are going on. So just working out the minor details. Hope to be announcing that ride route next week. But it will end at the R.M. Brooks General Store with a bike night, bike event there. So again, that information will be coming out probably next week, because we want to get the ride route announced and all of that information in there. So so a lot of different things going on, working on some different paracons and some different events that's going to be coming up later on in the year, getting those dates officially settled and that information out there. So look on the www.ghostbikerexplorations website, as well as on the Facebook page for that information going on. And if you want to do a ghost hunt with us, contact the historic Scott County Jail, where you can investigate with myself as well as my business partner, Dr. Christy Sumner from Soul Sisters Paranormal. Tomorrow night, we've got 4 tickets left to that ghost hunt. So get in on that before 4 p.m. tomorrow, and you can join us. If not, we've got dates that we'll be announcing tomorrow for May and June. So a lot going on here. So again, thank you everyone for joining us tonight, sticking with us. Next week, we're booking out for a bunch of different investigations that are coming up. So I want to make sure that I don't get this one wrong. I know that it's going to be a great show, but next week I have Miss Dee Dee from Paranormally Blonde, and she's going to be actually coming on. We've got an amazing topic, something that I've always found very interesting. We're going to be talking about dream interpretation. So we're going to talk about, her show, Paranormally Blonde, Haunted Hour, but primarily we're going to be talking about the dream interpretation. So, if you've got a dream or something that you want to talk about specifically, I'm going to have her analyze several of my dreams. So, but if you've got some, come here, put it in the comments. And it's going to be a fascinating topic. So that's going to be next Thursday night here in the same place. So we'll either be at the jail or in the garage next Thursday night at 9 p.m. So until then, I hope everyone has an amazing week, and we will see you then. Take care.